It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Chris Eberly. He's the director of the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership. WNAV is a partner of the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership. Chris, welcome back.
Great to be back, Donna. Thanks for having me.
All sorts of exciting things going on with the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, yes?
We are quite busy, yes.
For those that do not know what it is, let's start with that.
The Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership is a partnership with now 41 partner organizations that we work to address the highest priority bird conservation needs as addressed in the Maryland State Wildlife Action Plan.
So there's a lot of needs, right?
There are quite a few needs, yes. Habitat-based and then other, species-specific issues as well.
Keeping an eye out for the birds.
We're trying to.
Ensuring the future for the birds that either live in Maryland or are passing through Maryland. This weekend, coming up tomorrow, Saturday, January 25th, between 10 and 4, is what?
We are having the second annual Maryland Bird Symposium, and it'll be held at the Patuxent National Wildlife Visitor Center in Laurel, Maryland. As of now, we've got about 125 people registered. We probably have a few more spaces if people want to just come and sign up at the door. Mm-hmm. Registration is $40 for adults and $15 for youth and students.
And what will be happening during this day, and where do the funds go to?
So what will be happening is we have two keynote speakers, which we're very excited about. Michael Parr, who is president of American Bird Conservancy, and Autumn Lynn Harrison, who is the Migratory Connectivity Project Manager for the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center. So Michael will kick it off. And then we will have 13 different speakers throughout the day talking about a number of different topics. We have a few youth speakers and a couple college students. We're asking the professional speakers to sort of focus on that recent report that talked about the 3 billion birds lost since 1970 and what people are doing in Maryland to help stem those declines within the state of Maryland.
And that's not 3 billion birds in the state of Maryland.
That's North America. So it's about a 29% decrease in the number of birds in the population in North America at the end of breeding season.
It's a lot of birds.
It's a lot of birds, yeah. So proceeds, after all expenses are covered, all the proceeds go to the Maryland Avian Research and Conservation Fund for Youth. Last year we started that fund and added $3,100 to the fund. Our goal for 2020 is to increase that fund to $10,000. That fund is for Maryland youth to be able to submit project proposals that we will help mentor the person through the application process. If they're accepted and get a grant, we will mentor them through the entire project process. So it's a way to try to encourage Maryland youth to become engaged in conservation research and in community engagement type of projects involving birds.
That's awesome. A full disclosure, I am one of the speakers at the symposium tomorrow. I'll be speaking about the bald eagle poisonings that have happened on Maryland's Eastern Shore and the Delmarva Peninsula. There's so many more speakers. All of this is listed at marylandbirds.org. If for those people that can't make the symposium but that want to contribute to the fund, can that be done on your website?
Yes, on the website, if you go to the donate page, on our PayPal site, there is a drop-down menu to select a number of different things, and one of those is the Marc Fund for Youth.
And the website is marylandbirds.org. Once again, the symposium takes place between 10 and 4 tomorrow, Saturday, January 25th, at the Patuxent National Wildlife Refuge Visitor Center. All of this information is on marylandbirds.org. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Chris Eberly. He's the director of the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, and we're talking about the work they're doing. Let's talk about, because we're now going into it, we're already into it actually, the bald eagle nest monitoring program and training for that for those people that might want to become bald eagle nest monitors.
We've had one workshop already up in Harford County, but the next one in this area is going to be on January 30th. That's a Thursday evening at the Chesapeake Bay Environmental Center in Graysonville. We will have presentation with a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Eagle expert. I will be doing some of the presentation. And we also have the...
Buck. Buck is a bald eagle.
Oh, it's Buck from Tuckahoe.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for educating me on Buck. Buck's name. Yes, we will have the Buck from Tuckahoe State Park, the Scales and Tails program, also there. So it's a great opportunity to see a bald eagle up close and very personal, and very good photo ops for that too.
And they're great people from Tuckahoe State Park's Scales and Tails program. They really do care about our birds. All right, so that's the Bald Eagle Nest Monitoring Program training in Graysonville. There's also one further north, February 1st, yeah? February
1st in Hagerstown area, yes.
And why is this program important? And full disclosure, I am a Bald Eagle Nest Monitor.
You are involved in everything, which is great. And just had a meeting with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that adds a little bit more importance to this program. They occasionally get calls from people who are wanting to do some kind of housework construction, and there's a bald eagle nest there. So in order for them to be able to get a permit, there has to be understanding or knowledge of what that nest, where that nest is, and if it's been active in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And the Fish and Wildlife Service, because they lost funding to do any kind of eagle surveys once it was delisted, are going to start to rely on our bald eagle nest monitoring program to get that data. So that is one perspective from the Fish and Wildlife Service. From our perspective, from a conservation perspective, things like these eagle poisonings over on the eastern shore are something that if we are continuing to monitor nests, then we can get better information about what impacts things like that have on the eagle population and fledglings.
Very good. And the Bald Eagle Nest Monitoring Program has been around we're going into, is it 4 years now?
This will be the fourth full year of it, yeah.
So there's not a lot of time required to do this. It's how many visits to people?
A minimum of 3 visits during the nesting season. We're pretty much past the first visit already, which is just to identify whether or not a nest is active. Mm-hmm. Then we like to kind of get an idea of if eggs are laid and there's incubation happening, and then finally just to look at how many young have fledged the nest at the end of the season.
And each of these visits are about 30 minutes, I guess.
30 minutes, or as long as you want to sit there and watch the eagles, yeah.
Which once the eaglets arrive, it is kind of fun. Well, it's beautiful to see them, the adults too, but yeah.
It's great to watch throughout the whole cycle just to see the behavior changes. And, if you happen to be there when the eggs are hatching, that is a real special thing, just to see the proud parent display that the eagles appear to give.
It's really cool. Last year, and we don't monitor the nest over at Blackwater, but I happened to be there last year just as one of the eaglets arrived, I guess, and I was the first one to video that little tiny baby in the nest. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, beautiful thing to see, but they're pretty, gangly, I guess, at that stage, but that's kind of what makes them attractive.
That's just one program. You have many other programs, and here's one I just learned about that you have that I didn't even know about. Maryland Farm Raptor Program. What's that?
The Farmland Raptor Program. We're just getting that started, so it is kind of patterned after what Hawk Mountain Sanctuary in Pennsylvania is doing. So our program will focus on American kestrel and barn owl, which are 2 declining raptors that are in the farmland environment. And we are going to work with bird clubs, the Maryland Ornithological Society chapters and Audubon chapters on building nest boxes and monitoring what happens within those, so we can start to get an idea exactly what's happening with barn owls and kestrels. Because those are very good raptors to have in a farmland environment. They can really reduce the need for pesticides because they're great at pest control. Mm-hmm. And they're both declining, not just in Maryland, but throughout the whole eastern United States. So this is a way to help us try to boost the population, but at the same time monitor to know how well we're doing and what areas are doing better than others.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. This is Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Chris Eberly, Director of the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership. Bird City, Maryland, how's that going?
It's going really well. In February, we will have two very significant events. La Plata is going to be the first bird city designated within Maryland. We have a tentative date of February 24th to have a nice big celebration down there at La Plata with the mayor and the town council. And then Annapolis is another one we are working with right now. And we're really excited about this because the February Annapolis Green Drinks is going to feature, I guess the theme is going to be the birds and the bees. So to look at their bee city designation, but also we will make the announcement there that Annapolis is going to be the second Bird City, Maryland, and probably the first one to achieve high flyer status, which is just an extra level of accomplishments and conservation actions they've already done.
That's awesome. And what does that mean? What does Bird City mean? We've been through this before, but just in case people don't remember.
So Bird City is a way for us to be able to recognize communities that take measures to create a more sustainable community for birds and therefore for people in 6 different categories that involve habitat issues, reducing pesticide use, reducing threats to birds, looking at planting more native tree and shrub species. And it's a way to really engage the citizens of that community in a way that gets them out into nature. So we're using birds as sort of that gateway drug to get people out into nature.
So will there be signage in these cities?
Each bird city we will give them 2 signs, and if anybody out there has seen Tree City or Bee City signs, it'll be the same size, that type of sign with the Bird City logo on it. And then we will also present them with a flag that they can fly at an appropriate place, or in the case of La Plata, we're doing some banners for them that they will be putting on the main street in town, and they're really looking forward to that and proud of it.
That's awesome. One of my pet peeves, and it should be everybody's pet peeves, is watching the tourists and locals alike feeding the ducks down at City Duck. And I've often talked to the mayor about this issue because it's not good for the water. It's not good for the ducks, especially bread. When they're feeding bread to the ducks, it's bad.
Yeah.
So is part of the program for Bird City, Maryland in Annapolis going to address this?
Yes, actually. I was talking with them earlier this week about that, and they specifically were talking about their efforts to try to have signage put up about don't feed the ducks.
That's awesome.
And that is going to fit into one of the criteria to help them achieve that high flyer status.
And why is it, for those that don't know, that bread should not be fed?
It's pretty hollow in terms of nutrition. Birds have very high nutritional needs. They expend a lot of energy, and they're eating all the time because they're constantly burning that up. They don't have a lot of fat reserves. So bread fills them up, kind of like, with people, fills them up, but it really gives them no nutritional value. So it really is not good for their overall health and well-being.
And my understanding is it creates or helps to create a condition called angel wing. There's some other things on Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership's website, even though WNAV is a partner and I'm very active as a bald eagle nest monitor, that I actually learned about today. Some of the surveys that you're doing or that you're helping with: turkey survey, sandhill crane survey, and nightjar survey.
The turkey survey is something that Maryland Department of Natural Resources does, and they're always looking for volunteers. So we try to help them with recruiting volunteers, get people out to do turkey surveys. And I forget exactly what season that is, but I think that might be coming up. Sandhill crane surveys is something that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does. Sandhill crane populations are expanding, and their ranges are also expanding, so they're trying to track in the winter where these birds are wintering. And in Maryland, we're seeing an increasing number of sandhill cranes over the winter time.
There was a time when we were supposed to not talk about this. Like people didn't want to let out the cat out of the hat type of thing with sandhill cranes being here, but
it's still a little bit touchy to some people. And I just saw some posts this week on MD Birding that somebody wanted to know where the cranes were, and another person was like, well, I'm not going to post that. And then there was the back and forth, and basically sometimes birders have bad behavior and can, disrupt the birds and stress them. So some people still will not reveal locations of the cranes. It's an ongoing process. We're trying to help with the birding community to educate people on how not to stress birds. Things like snowy owls, sandhill cranes, all those things. Yeah, you got to be very careful, and people don't understand the stress levels they can cause.
All right. And nightjars. What is a nightjar?
Nightjar is things like whippoorwill, common nighthawk, chuckwill's widow, which we get sometimes on the eastern shore. Those are aerial insectivores, which means they catch insects in the air. Insect populations are declining, and therefore a lot of these aerial insectivores, which also include swifts and swallows, they're in decline like a lot of other species. The College of William and Mary's Center for Conservation Biology started this program to do nightjar surveys, and it actually, I think, it's a nationwide program now. So there are protocols that we follow that they have put out there having to do with moon phase during the nesting season. There's only about 2 periods in the nesting season you can do this, but it's sort of an organized way for them to collect data that can be comparable to understand what is happening with nightjar populations and where they're really losing out, where they might be starting to come back. One of the important bird area monitoring sites that we have, Idlewild Wildlife Management Area, it has been doing these nightjar surveys for a number of years because they get whippoorwills over there, and those are very much in decline in Maryland.
Although this conversation is about the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership for the most part, since you were last here, you took over the presidency for another organization.
Yeah, so I had nothing else to do in my free time. So yeah, I am now president of the Anne Arundel Bird Club. And one of the really cool things that we've just started is something called the Community Lecture Series. And Donna, you had the honor of being our first speaker at that.
Thank you for that.
Earlier, I guess, this month at Union Jacks, which was a fun evening. And the turnout was really good. You talked about the whole carbofurin and bald eagle issue, and there was incredible interest and feedback and a lot of discussion with that. So these lectures, and we might try to find another term because lecture sometimes I think turns off people, but we want to try to do presentations, get speakers that will draw in the broader community, not just bird-loving people, but things that will be of more interest to the community. Right. So February we've got Gerald Weingrad, who I'm sure a lot of you know from his days as a Maryland state senator, and I guess the so-called environmental conscience of the Maryland Senate, is going to talk about a trip he and his wife Carol took to Svalbard, Norway, which is getting really close to the North Pole, and some just incredible pictures. I've already seen them, and he is one that gives quite an interesting talk no matter what the subject is. And that is going to be on February 19th at Quiet Waters Park, Blue Heron Center. And
the website for Anne Arundel Bird Club is?
aabirds.org.
All right, very good. Again, for the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, it's marylandbirds.org. Chris, thank you very much for joining me once again.
Donna, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.